I'm joined now by Jon Stockley, the National Director for Wales from Christian Vision for Men. We're talking today, John, about an idea that's been floated in the past, but a recent poll has suggested there could be quite a lot of public support for it. And this is the idea of creating the government post of a Minister for Men. Now, obviously, Christian Vision for Men is all about reaching out to the males in our world with the good news of the gospel. This latest survey is suggesting we might need a political minister for men because of the bad news when it comes to mental health and even suicide statistics. I wonder what your response is to this idea of this minister for men role.
Yeah, it's a very interesting idea, isn't it? Of course, I believe the government's already has a minister for women. So I guess this would level it up, wouldn't it? You know, so you'd have minister for both men and for women. Look, I think there are clear and obvious issues around mental health and physical well-being and social integration for, I would say, for both men and for women. And so anything that the government can do to help men, particularly with mental health and with physical well-being, is only to be welcomed. I mean, when the government begins to get interested in things like that, then presumably there are pots of money that come with that, and there are new opportunities that can open up across the whole of the nation. So I would, in principle, say a minister that was focused on men's mental health and well-being can only be a good thing.
Do you think it's becoming increasingly difficult for all of us, as you said, men and women, to really get a sense of who we are, why we're here, what we're doing in our increasingly kind of global and social media-driven world?
Yeah, so I think what has happened, I guess globally, particularly since the dare we mention the COVID pandemic, when we were all locked up and all sorts of things happened. I don't think we have, in some ways, paid the check for that season, and by that I mean we haven't paid the bill that it's placed on our own mental health, social integration, physical well-being. And I think we're living in the fallout from that. And you mentioned social media. I find social media increasingly difficult now. There's almost a sense in which social media keeps us in the shallow waters, where we talk about everything, but actually we talk about nothing in real depth or with real meaning or focus. And so what that means is that we struggle to think through and process the stuff that's going on around us, but we still get angry about because of a soundbite about it or something like that. So I think all of that is it's a cauldron, if you like, a soup of struggling post-COVID, getting back to normal, trying to resolve some of the mental health issues that came out of that, certainly the physical issues that came out of it, and also having the social media platforms around causing us all kinds of angst.
Do you think, John, that men in particular, sometimes there's just that need to, whether it's at a footy match or at the bowling or whatever our hobbies are, to just get together and just have that time to chat, to go in depth, to get out of those shallow waters?
Yes, I do. And that's why I do what I do for a living. It's why I focus all my energy on reaching men and encouraging men to be part of a social network, a real social network, as one of my friends calls it, smell-o-vision. When you're standing in front of somebody, you can smell them and, you know, all of that. And I think here's just a personal reflection. I mean, if I struggle in life, I have almost a default tendency to pull myself away and to go in on myself, and that can be really dangerous. Whereas what we need to be doing is being part of communities that draw us out, that asks us the the question that asks us, how are you doing? And not just expecting, oh, I'm fine as a response. Ultimately, I'd always say church is that community. It's that place where the mental health, the physical well-being and spiritual well-being, social integration, it all comes into focus in a good church community. But you can also get that in a rugby match or a football match or dare I say, going down to the pub or the coffee shop or whatever. But yeah, we need to be really banging the drum for men to open up and to express how they're feeling. But the key to that is being with people that you trust, isn't it? You're not going to tell people who you don't trust everything that's going on in your life. So it's about building those relationships and enabling men then to say, it's not weak to share that I'm struggling, that I'm vulnerable, that I'm not as resilient as I used to be.
Is it also about bridging that gap between acquaintanceship and friendship? Because many of us can go to church and that's fine. We do the service, we maybe even have the coffee afterwards, but we don't really feel we know those people well enough to pick up the phone to them midweek when things really are getting tough.
Yeah, so again, we come back to those shallow waters, don't we? Where we have a tendency to, as you say, meet up with somebody once a week in a church service or a rugby match, football match, or wherever we do our social stuff. And it's all just a little bit shallow, veneer level, if you like. One of the things, again, from a personal point of view, is over the last few years, pre-COVID, but and since, I've met up every Wednesday morning with a friend of mine who's a pastor in the next village along. We meet up at 7 o'clock in the morning. We pretend now, because it's so cold, that we go swimming in the sea. But the point being is that we get together, we drink coffee, we talk about everything that's going, the things I've confessed and shared with my mate Chris every week has just released that pressure valve within me. So yeah, you're right. We have to find. This is why I state it's trusted people, isn't it? You need to build trust with each other and know how they're going to react in any given situation, pretty much, so that you can share everything that you're struggling with and know you're not going to get judged, you're not going to get condemned, but you are going to get supported and loved. And that's the thing that I think one of the things with us men is we're not that tactile, are we? And we have spent a lot of time we want to be the strong man, the one who comes through. But actually the love of a good brother who stands shoulder to shoulder with us is vitally important. And I think that's more important now than it's ever been. It's certainly in my lifetime.
Just finally, Jon, the whole focus, if indeed there were to be a Minister for Men in the government, the whole focus on that would be tackling these issues rightly, such as mental health and all that leads to. But as Christians, if we're looking at reaching out to fellow men, is it more than just our emotions, just how we're doing in life? Is there a spiritual dimension to all of this?
Of course there is. Absolutely. You're spot on, Dave. The reality is that a government can go so far. A Minister for Men can make the world a bit better by passing legislation, by creating opportunities. But ultimately, hope only comes from Jesus Christ, doesn't it? And I think the reality is that, along with everyone else, you and I will have both gone through ups and downs. We would have had times when we were okay and other times when we were really not okay. And the reality is that in the end, it's our relationship with Jesus Christ that brings us through. It's our relationship with Jesus Christ and the love that he has for us and we have for him that builds resilience in our lives. So it's never going to be enough just to deal with the mental health issue. It's never going to be enough just to deal with social integration and with physical well-being. All of those things are really, really important. But ultimately, the only thing that gets us out of this situation well and for all eternity is our relationship with Jesus. And if we believe that as individuals, then we surely want that to be part of everything that we do and how we share our lives with others, and literally pointing to Jesus all the time. I remember a pastor once said to me when I met up with him to talk about a particular issue I was going through at the time, and he said to me, has God or Jesus ever let you down in your life? Can you point to one moment where Jesus has let you down, not come through for you, not helped you in a situation? I said, of course I can't. And he said, well, you've lost the right not to go to Jesus first and foremost in every situation for your life. And that's what we want to create for men, is women and children. It's not just a gender issue. This is just people, isn't it? That we want them to go to Jesus to find a hope that he gives. And then we start to see things happening in society which no government minister will ever be able to do in the remit that they have.
Jon Stockley from Christian Vision for Men, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.